All right. How to sell to architects, part 386. Just kidding. Part two. Yesterday at Project Perspective, we sent 87 emails on behalf of one of our clients. We had 20 opens and 16 click throughs. That's a 14% click through rate, or 13.8% technically. The industry average for the construction industry is 2%, according to MailChimp. So 13.8 is almost a 7 times better click through rate. That means 7 times more people on our client's website reading about the product and making inquiries. And we achieve that mostly through these email writing tips. So here are 3 tips that will help you be more effective in your email writing. The first tip is to keep it short. I think it was Thomas Jefferson or Mark Twain who said, "I'm writing you a long email because I don't have time to write you a short one." Just kidding. It's obviously a letter, but it would have been the same on this platform as it was on that. But the thought, the idea, the principle is that it's harder to write a short, concise email than it is to write a long one. One time, the team at Project Perspective wrote an email for a customer. It was a great, concise, pointed email. Later, the client wanted to add more facts and features about the product. So we said, okay, after pointing out why we did what we did, and they continued to want to include these other details, we said okay, and we tried it their way, and that email ended up getting 17 times fewer clicks. And here's what went wrong. They tried to include everything about their product, and you just can't put everything that you'd like to include about your product into one email, because if you try to do that, then people just won't read it. And it's better to have people read a shorter email that lacks some of the detail, but to click through and to continue to learn more about your product on your website than it is for a person to get a long email and just bin it immediately. So just think about what can this email feasibly achieve and stick to that. Tip number 2, start with the benefit to the customer. Try not to have something generic like we're fast, cheap, or we can help you from start to finish, because anybody could say that, and everybody does say that. And in a busy marketplace, it is better. Well, if you don't stand out, then you're just going to be invisible. So in order to stand out, you need probably one tip for that is just to be more specific. What does it mean that you're fast? Here's an example from one of our clients. They they calculated how much time them being fast would save their client on site. If they're on site for less time, that means they have to keep it open less, which means there's fewer costs associated with it. They estimated the average cost per day of keeping the site open, and then calculated how much savings that represented to the client. So here's an example of how their email could open. Hi, I want to let you know about a fast scaffolding alternative. It can set up in a third of the time it takes for traditional scaffolding to be erected. This can save you a week on site, saving you about 75,000 pounds on average. Let me know if you'd like to speak. So this is an example of how an email for this company could start. And the strength of it is that they've calculated the benefit in a statistic, or in this case, the dollar amount or the pound amount that it would save their client. It just makes it more credible than saying quick, or even dressing it up as an elegant and efficient solution. Which brings me to my next point. Speak like a person. Uh, Sometimes we think in B2B that we have to speak to a vague corporate entity and to dress up our language and to fluff it out. And something we do have to consider tone, but keep in mind that you're speaking to a person, not a company. Picture a person in front of you, and think about their hopes and their fears, their desires, their goals and ambitions, their fears and frustrations. And hopefully, you have all this information for your buyer segment through some customer research and a buyer persona that you've built off the back of that. But short of that, just think about your experience with your market, and picture a typical person in that market, and then speak to them the way you would to a person. Avoid unnecessary jargon, stuffy or flowery language, and even stuff like certifications that realistically aren't going to have a persuasive effect on them, but would, you might be tempted to use just to make it seem more official or fancier or more credible. But in reality, everybody's certified, and you don't really need to include that, and you're only including it because you don't have something else to say. So instead of that, just go back to point number 2 and find out what benefit that your product really does offer to your prospect. Because if you take out all the fluff, all the jargon, all the certifications that aren't really relevant, and then you're leaving yourself with the most essential pieces, and it makes it more readable and personal. And the more readable and personal something is, the more likely we are to engage with it. So these are 3 tips from our experience writing emails to architects. Project Prospecta has consistently had an above average in click-through rate, and it's mostly through practicing things like this. Not too difficult, not too hard, something that everybody can do and should do, because it's, at the end of the day, it's a kinder result. An email that's personal, that's readable, that's straight to the point. That's the type of emails I think that all of us would appreciate. So if you want any more tips or help or to chat or anything like that, feel free to get in touch. I hope this has been helpful. Thanks.